Okay, before we get to the video, let's look at a couple of typical installation tools and then let's talk about whose boss actually buys them what and who owns what of their own. It's really nice to have these true blue HVAC hoses. Really is nice to have those, but you don't have them on every job. The zoom lock, I'm not crazy about it, but we've got one. Here's the nicer of the two NAVAC flare tools. Here's a set of field piece probes. We haven't opened those yet. We've got quite a few of these. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of those. We use this field piece recovery machine. It works really well. Here's the vacuum pump that we use by field piece. I haven't opened the 10 CFM, the new one, yet. We got that. We do have two of these. We've got the 4 and this is the 2, and the 2 hasn't even been opened, and we got the 4 in. But what I'm looking at right now is, you know, it's a lot of money for these, you know, especially these hoses. So I don't know who all's going to buy those. Who's going to buy everything as expensive as they can. And a lot of cases, you know, installers are looking to their boss to provide stuff. So we're going to do a real world install. Now we're going to just use an old vacuum pump, very typical one like most people would have in their van or truck. We're going to do, you know, the best job we can without extreme high-end tools. So let's take a look at what I'm going to call a real world install. Hope you enjoy the video. We're going to go over the layout here with the installer. This is Danny. This is one of the better guys. And we're going to look here at what we want for the final product. I think this is pretty much all trash up here. We're not going to have a condensate pump. We're going to try to go 2 blocks high with our new system. And we want to come back to our first joint and put new elbows that face this way, and then elbows on our plenum, probably one on the top and one on the back side. We'll lay back just like this, and I've got new double wall for that. So what he's going to do right now is he's going to pump the refrigerant down in the machine. When the unit still runs and the compressor is good, we have the luxury of being able to pump the refrigerant down into it without having to use a recovery machine and take it out. So what he's doing now is he's closing the liquid line, which is the small line, or discharge line as you may call it. He's closing that all the way, and then he's going to partially close his big suction line, and then he'll start the compressor. And while the compressor's running, it's drawing the refrigerant down into the unit, just as if they were when they came pre-charged from the factory. All right, so you can see what the tear out, how much of a mess it makes here. So we're going to do what we call cycle these drop cloths. And you can see nobody really runs to help me with the little stuff. But this is the reason the Miracani 1 hangs around these higher end jobs, is for the little stuff like that. Eventually that would get trampled off into the carpet. So we're going to dump this out and spread it again. All right, so we're going to get the flush process that we do. As you saw, we have the loop in the attic. And kind of a crude way of doing it, what we do out here. We have tried several different ways of catching it in a bottle, and it just doesn't work. Let me show that for a second with this. So, I've bought all these Pyrex bottles and these glass apparatuses and tied a tube to this and tried to catch it, and just never worked out well. So the real crude way that we use is we're just going to lay a box right here. We just put that box right over the suction line, and then he blows it in through that line. So I'm going to work this regulator for him a little bit. All right, so I got the nitrogen on, and I'm going to trickle it up to about 50 psi and let it blow through kind of easy. And then, okay, so I'm going to let that solvent come out. And then after it all gets, basically the bulk of it gets run through, then I'll turn this nitrogen up, and we'll blow a good bit of the nitrogen through it at a higher pressure, like a couple of hundred psi. So he's getting ready to weld in the unit, and we've got all of the copper dry fitted in the attic and out here. We're going to take this little flow meter, a little small regulator, and we're going to trickle nitrogen through the lines like we're supposed to do. And we're also going to take this product here. We use a couple different ones. It's called Wet Rag. All it is a heat sink compound. You kind of wad it up like a piece of clay, and if you wrap it around a piece of copper like right there, and then you heat this side up, the heat really won't travel past this to a certain extent. So what he's getting ready to do now is get set up to weld, and so that's the process he's going to do. He's going to put some of this on to protect each of these valves. Okay. And at that point, we're going to hook the nitrogen up and let it trickle through. We'll probably purge it through with a little bit higher pressure for just like a minute, just to get all the oxygen out. That's what that's for. And so you want to weld in an oxygenless environment. Gotcha. That's the point. Okay. Just to keep from oxidation happening. on the inside of the pipe. So normally the target is 500, and if we get down to at least 500 microns, we'll settle for that. But we got down below 300, as you can see. So now it's doing what you call a decay, and with the pump off, it's going to decay some. Probably not far, but anytime it goes down to 300 or below, we're pretty sure that we've got a solid system and that we don't have any leaks. What we're going to do is we're going to add a vent in this closet. This closet's on an outside wall, and there's two walk-in closets. And the inside one is fine, but this outside wall gets really cold and really hot. So we're going to add a vent here. Okay, I'm going to get on the other side.
Okay.
See that? Okay, so what I've done is I've drilled what we call a spot wire, but that's really a an insulation wire that goes under a house and holds insulation up in the floor. And you can get them 15 and I think 23 inches. We use that 15-inch one when we can. And people call them tiger teeth. But we use it to drill through a floor or ceiling, and that way if we can't use that spot, it's not too big of a hole. So we call them spot wires. So I'm going to hold this box against the ceiling. Okay, go ahead. So this box will minimize the mess. I don't know that I really invented this method. I think other people probably do something very similar. You good?
Yep.
Okay. Looks like your template was a little small, but let's see if it'll squeeze it up. So they added our zone dampers over here in the two existing trunk lines. So that one is a 14-inch there, right there. And then here's our other 14-inch right here. And this is what allows us to zone it separate. This goes to the bedroom half of the house, and that goes to the living and den and kitchen and all that, dining room. Okay. So you can see why I like Danny to do these zone jobs. He does a really neat job on his wiring. You know, I've told him he can cut these, but he doesn't like it. He thinks they need to be the same length, you know, so he doesn't cut these hoses. He just coils them up, but as long as they look good and they work good. So these are just the static pressure transducer hoses. Here's the zone panel. He's got all his wiring banded together, so let's just hope everything's right and doesn't have to go back into it. Here's our filter. We like these 5-inch filters.
Right here?
Right. There's a setting there. Where is that? It says 10. That's the subcooling that we're after, and what that really is just kind of a final tune on the air conditioner charge, the amount of refrigerant you add. So it's kind of low. It's going back up now. It's at about 5. So he's going to add some charge in order to stabilize that and to get this closer to the target. The target is 10. the spec over there says actually plus or minus 3. And the reason for that is line set length and the environment the line set goes through. So if it was going across a really hot attic and it had a lot of line that it was exposed to a really hot 100-degree attic, 120-degree attic, we'd probably go to 11 on this, especially with a straight air. Now with a heat pump, I don't ever go over the target. I'll go a little low or right at it. But on a straight air, sometimes we'll go over. So if it fluctuates a little below and a little above, I'm good with that. But 9.9 is as close to 10 as you really need to get. We can see here we have kind of a miniature version of the same thing. And it doesn't do near the stuff the main one does, but it will control either zone, and they'll both be on the app. So we really like Train.